At the start of the movie, we meet Tom and Phoebe, a struggling couple barely making ends meet. Phoebe juggles college and babysitting jobs to cover expenses, while Tom, a local wrestler, barely earns $20 even after winning matches. You get the picture. Times are tough. Phoebe's exams are around the corner, but she can't afford to skip work. Babysitting pays well, better than Tom's wrestling gigs. And there's a reason for that, which you'll find out soon. But this time, Phoebe isn't going herself. She convinces Tom to babysit instead. He hesitates but gives in after some sweet talk. Tom knows babysitting isn't child's play. He has to watch his language, understand the kid's routine, and figure things out on the spot. Luckily, it's only for a few hours, just enough time for Phoebe to study. Meanwhile, a mysterious man receives a call. "Be there at 9:30 tomorrow. Bring your tools if I need you." He opens his closet. Inside, a mask and pictures of missing girls. Oh, and if you're wondering where they went, well, let's just say this guy has a thing for pretty young women. Flashback to the movie's intro. This stranger broke into a house and killed 2 girls. One of them? Her missing poster is up at Phoebe's college. Creepy, right? The next day, Tom arrives at the house. The girl's stepdad, Gil, jokes, "We needed a babysitter, not a bodyguard." He introduces Tom to his wife, Barb. They've only been married 7 months. Gil is Grace's stepfather, but Barb is her real mom. Grace, glued to her video game, barely acknowledges Tom. Before heading out for dinner, Gil hands Tom his payment up front. As they leave, the so-called stranger arrives. His real name? Loverboy, and he's already watching. Inside, Tom tells Grace he'll be downstairs if she needs anything. While watching TV, he hears something from upstairs. He asks Grace, but she denies hearing anything. Suspicious, Tom considers checking the attic, but Grace interrupts. She wants pizza. Tom orders, but something about the attic feels off. Soon, the pizza guy arrives. Turns out, he's a fan of Tom's wrestling. After snapping a selfie, he heads out, only to spot someone near the shed. He approaches, full of confidence. He's been training in boxing after all. Big mistake. Loverboy slits his throat, killing him instantly. Then, he punctures Tom's car tires. Inside, Tom and Grace eat pizza and play video games. She suddenly asks, "Have you ever seen someone die?" Tom hesitates. Can't say. "I have," she replies. "I saw my dad die." After her father's death, her mom married Gil. And according to Grace, Gil is a terrible person. Later, while making tea, Tom gets a text from Phoebe. He leaves his phone on the counter. That's when it happens. 2 masked men emerge from the attic, Spinhead and Bernie. Bernie attacks, but Tom fights back, brutally. He doesn't just knock him out, he burns him alive. Meanwhile, Spinhead grabs Grace, but she manages to escape. Tom and Spinhead engage in a violent brawl that spills into another room. Tom takes some hits, but he's no quitter. He fights back, ties Spinhead up, and drags him downstairs. They need to call the police. But wait, Bernie stole Tom's phone. Worse? He saw Phoebe's text and lured her here, and she has no idea what's waiting for her. At this point, Tom and Grace just wanted to escape, but Tom noticed his car tires were slashed. The pizza boy's car was still there, and seeing it, he realized his fan was dead. They rushed back inside. If the main gate was locked, then how did those intruders get in? The attic. Tom had a bad feeling about that place from the start. Looking up, he saw strange ritual markings, a skull, and signs that confirmed those 2 had entered from there. But he didn't tell Grace, instead instructing her to hide in the bathroom while he confronted Spinhead. The masked intruder made it clear they were there for the girl first, and then the woman. The woman? They meant Phoebe. Just then, Phoebe arrived outside with her friend Christine and Christine's boyfriend Mike. She casually sanitized her hands before heading in, unaware of the nightmare waiting inside. Mike and Christine had only come to drop her off, but Phoebe insisted they meet Grace. If they had known what was inside, they would have driven away. Mike, who already didn't like Tom much, stayed back while Phoebe called him. But before Tom could answer, Bernie grabbed Phoebe from behind. Meanwhile, Loverboy, the masked killer, climbed into their car. Mike panicked and bolted toward the car, but Phoebe wasn't one to go down easy. She sprayed sanitizer in Bernie's eyes, forcing him to retreat. Tom rushed outside only to see Mike getting slaughtered. Loverboy slit his throat first, then went into a brutal frenzy, drenching the place in blood. Phoebe, Christine, and Tom ran inside. But Bernie had already stolen Phoebe's purse, which had her phone. Christine's phone? Of course, she left it in the car. Meanwhile, Bernie, barely able to stand, made his way to a bar where the rest of his gang was waiting. There was someone even bigger than Loverboy there. Meat. Alongside him was Slackjaw, a creep who acted completely unhinged, and then there was their boss, the Jackal. He stood in front of a strange door, chanting something under his breath. Then, he ordered Slackjaw to handle the situation. Inside, Christine was tending to Tom's wounds when they heard something. Tom rushed to check and managed to pin Slackjaw's hand in the door. He was about to finish him off when Phoebe stopped him. But then, something horrifying happened. Hearing Slackjaw getting beaten, Bernie ran back and reported to the Jackal. The gang leader touched the strange door, muttered a ritual, and suddenly, a glow appeared from behind it. At that very moment, Spinhead, who was tied up inside the house, gained unnatural strength, snapping the wires and breaking free. He let out a monstrous scream. Tom gave Phoebe a butcher knife before heading up. If anyone comes in, cut them down. Upstairs, Spinhead wasn't just free, he had transformed. His eyes gleamed with rage, and before Tom could react, he was mercilessly beaten and thrown into the kitchen. There, Spinhead removed his mask, revealing his true face. But Phoebe remembered Tom's words, "Cut them down." She lunged at Spinhead and slashed. Nothing happened. He grabbed her and hurled her across the room like a rag doll. That was the last mistake he made. Tom didn't hesitate. With one clean strike, he decapitated Spinhead. But the nightmare wasn't over. As soon as Tom turned, he was ambushed. Bernie and Slackjaw pinned him in a corner. However, Phoebe wasn't backing down either. She grabbed the butcher knife and attacked Slackjaw. Not once, not twice, but at least 40 to 45 times. She hacked at his head, over and over, blood splattering everywhere, and she didn't stop until Tom told her to. A while later, everyone was in a room when Christine, still grieving Mike's death, went to the kitchen to get some water, holding a knife in her hand. But then, the door outside started shaking on its own, and suddenly, Mike, who was lying dead outside, stood up. He was alive, but not human anymore. Mike had turned into a zombie. He knocked on the door, calling out to Christine. Phoebe begged her not to open it, but Christine, blinded by emotions, held the knife against Phoebe and pushed her aside. She opened the door. Mike smiled. "One last hug?" he asked. But instead of a hug, he took something else, her life. He sank his teeth into her neck, draining every last breath from her body. Now, it was Phoebe's turn. But just then, Tom burst in. The two of them fought Mike and smashed his head open, finishing him for good. Christine, barely holding on, collapsed beside Mike and took her last breath. And then, Gil and Barb entered. They saw the blood-soaked scene and lost their minds. But before they could call the cops, Tom pointed them toward the attic, the place where everything had started. "This wasn't just an attack," he said. "It was planned." Yes, the attack was a setup by none other than Gil and Barb themselves. Gil didn't waste a second. He stabbed Tom. Meanwhile, downstairs, Barb and Loverboy trapped Grace and Phoebe. And then, the truth came out. This was never just a random massacre. It was a ritual. Behind that mysterious door lived the Eternal Ones, and they demanded sacrifices, young, beautiful women. In return, they promised eternal life, a place in their paradise. That's why Loverboy had killed those two girls earlier. They weren't just murdered, they were sacrificed. And now, Phoebe was the key to the next ritual. It wouldn't work without all four of them: Gil, Barb, Grace, and Phoebe. They all had to be there for it to begin and end. And the one performing the ritual? None other than Jackal. But that wasn't the worst part. Barb had even killed Grace's real dad just so she could marry Gil and join him in this twisted quest for immortality. That's why Grace had warned that Gil wasn't a good man. They dragged Grace and Phoebe away. But it wasn't over. Because upstairs, our hero was still breathing. Loverboy had gone up to finish Tom, but before he could, Tom did something unexpected. He awakened the head. Yes, the decayed, rotting head of the very man who had once connected the Eternal Ones to this world. Immortal, but bodiless, and the only thing it ever craved was to feed. Meanwhile, on the way to the ritual, Grace tricked Gil into taking her to the bathroom. The moment they were alone, she stabbed him and ran. Grace staggered upstairs and tried to stab Loverboy, but Tom got him first. He threw Loverboy's wounded body straight in front of the head. The head devoured him. Tom then delivered one final punch, sending him crashing to the ground. Loverboy was dead. Tom, barely holding on, grabbed the head and rushed downstairs. He quickly cauterized his wounds and joined Phoebe. They had to gear up, but Gil, Barb, and Bernie were already on their way to retrieve Grace. Because remember, if even one member was missing, the ritual wouldn't work, and they weren't about to let that happen. As Bernie entered, Grace quickly hid. Poor Bernie was in immense pain again. But why was engine oil leaking from his hand? He rushed to the kitchen to stop the bleeding, but what he saw next shocked him. Gil and Barb were running toward the barn. But standing in their way was Tom. He warned them, "Bring Phoebe, or this head is gone." Yes, they needed the head for the ritual. They couldn't risk losing it, so they quickly called Jackal and Meat. Jackal smirked at Tom and said, "Listen, kid, if we don't sacrifice Phoebe, the Eternal Ones will unleash chaos with their power. They'll wipe out everything in their path." Tom had only two options: hand over the head and return to his miserable life, or kill the head and get killed by Meat. Either way, the ritual was happening. But Tom took his chance. He tore the head in half. Yet it was still alive. Furious, Jackal ordered Meat to finish Tom and bring Grace. A brutal fight broke out. Tom was getting beaten badly, but in the end, he overpowered Meat. Meanwhile, Grace grabbed the head and, bam, slammed it onto Meat. The head devoured him, sending Meat straight to the Eternal Ones, permanently. Tom told Grace he'd go get Phoebe, but handed her the key to the pizza guy's car and warned her, if he didn't return in 10 minutes, she had to drive straight to the police or somewhere safe. She'd only driven a little with her dad, but Tom said that was good enough. Tom rushed into the barn, knocking Gil aside. Suddenly, an earthquake shook the place. The door to the other realm was opening. But it wasn't for something to come out. It was calling for a sacrifice. Jackal was supposed to fix the contract error, but Tom had other plans. He shoved Jackal through the doorway, sealing it shut. Just as Tom freed Phoebe, the door reopened. This time, Tom made a decision. He was going in himself. He was going to fight whatever was on the other side and come back victorious. He turned to Phoebe, whispered, "Love you," and stepped forward. But before he could enter, Jackal emerged, possessed by an Eternal One. Tom's punches were useless against him. Jackal sneered, "You broke our sacred contract. Now you'll be my slaves forever." And then, boom, Grace made her entrance, knocking Jackal straight into the other dimension. The door slammed shut for good. "You took more than 10 minutes, she teased. But just when they thought it was over, Meat attacked Tom again. Phoebe grabbed an iron hook and, slash, hooked it around his neck. The three of them pulled together, ending Meat once and for all. Phoebe turned to Barb, threw a punch and declared, "I quit this job." By morning, they had escaped, but Phoebe still had to take her exam. And just as they left, Bernie stood in the shadows, holding the head. His eyes glowed. And with that, the movie came to an end.